So we're ready to move to our first keynote speaker. And our first keynote is Maria Heijne from the University of Amsterdam. Now, unfortunately, Maria, due to unforeseen family circumstances, is unable to join us in person to deliver her keynote. However, she is here in a virtual sense, and she is going to be listening to the presentation, and she will be joining us via Zoom, so she can respond to any questions or comments that you may have arising from her presentation. And Hester Mounterfield will facilitate that. So at the conclusion of her keynote, Hester will take to the stage and facilitate Q&A. To introduce Maria, she started her career in 1976, focusing her interests on the technological and innovative developments in libraries, such as library automation, going back to the GAC days, which is very early automation for academic libraries, and actively led early projects in networks and digital libraries, such as SurfNet. As Library Director at Delft University of Technology, she concentrated on adapting the library to new requirements in the information environment, resulting in establishing a library learning centre and a centre for research data management. Open access became a high focus area for her as Library Director of the University of Amsterdam, where she's been leading that organisation since 2013. Maria is a past president of the Coalition of Dutch University Libraries and of IATL, the International Association of Scientific and Technological University Libraries. Please join me in welcoming Maria.
Libraries. And I will do that from the perspective of European policy, with recent examples from the literature and from reports published recently. And I want to show you how we, from our small country, took some important issues forward in the European arena. Our current Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I regret very much that I cannot be with you in Auckland today on the THETA conference. But I'm very happy with the fact that the organization gave me the opportunity to talk to you anyway. And I'm proud that they invited me to talk to you, because I am originally from a very small country. Very small, as you can see, on a worldwide scale, but also small when you look at the neighbors that are surrounding us. In this small country, we have 14 universities, and I'm proud to tell you that these 14 universities have been able to put the open science debate forward in the last year. I'm myself from the University of Amsterdam, and if you allow me some tourist talk, Amsterdam is in the province where at this particular moment the tulips are flowering abundantly. And it's the city of bicycles and the city of beautiful canals with their beautiful houses. And at one of those canals you would find the pride of the university, the Archaeology Museum, and the building of the special collections. Both belong to the library, and of course a presentation on the advantages of working together between museums and libraries is quite another thing. I would come to that very happily in another presentation. And now you know where I come from. I would like to talk to you about where libraries come from. This picture shows you our oldest library, situated at the Amsterdam Zoo. It looks like a book museum, and that's exactly what people told us in the beginning of the 90s. University libraries would become book museums of the 21st century. And this particular library, even though the picture doesn't show it to you, is very much alive these days. And we as libraries are very much alive these days. And that's what I'm going to talk to you in my presentation. I want to show you that the next generation of libraries is about working together in education support, in research support, and in open science, as a new role for libraries. And I will do that from the perspective of European policy, with recent examples from the literature and from reports published recently. And I want to show you how we, from our small country, took some important issues forward in the European arena. Our current libraries are very popular for study spaces, and it's amazing that the more digital our world becomes, the more students will come to our libraries. And the current generation libraries are becoming ever more important and develop into all-in-one spaces for learning, meeting, sharing, experiencing, etc. Here you see one of our recently refurbished libraries that are populated every day of the year. And people are coming together, talking to each other, meeting each other, but also using, for instance, our heritage collections quite intensively. But the next generation of libraries in education is not just a place to meet and study. And a recent meeting between JISC and CNI in last June came to the same conclusion. More so than ever, the library is more than a place to meet and study. It should be seen as a complement to the new research environment. And I support that statement. It is important for libraries to take up a proactive role in keeping a close connection to the educational infrastructure of their universities, to show the library's strength in development around blended learning and open educational resources. It's not just about offering a place to be, however important that is, of course. When you think about your position in open education, you have to look at the policymakers around you. And for the Netherlands, that means that we have to look at Europe, but also at our national ministry. In Europe, the Council has taken a firm position as far as open education concerns. And to my opinion, the last sentence of this slide is the one to notice. It offers multiple ways of teaching and learning, building and sharing knowledge, as well as a variety of access routes to formal and non-formal education. This is where libraries come in. As a sort of independent party within the university, you can bring together parties in showing where you, with your experience, can support these developments. By the way, these developments are now still seen sometimes as an extra burden to teachers, or maybe even as a threat. And that's why you have to take your role and show teachers how these developments can be of advantage to them. University College in London is an important example in this area and is also an important player in the European arena. Of course, we have to see how Brexit will influence that. And the Director of Libraries is actively involved in the EU delegation on open science. And I sincerely want to follow the idea that the student naturally adopts the idea of open. UCL is very much in favor of the supporting role of the library in open education. And we at the University of Amsterdam want to commit ourselves in the same way. Recently, all important players in the field of blended learning of the university paid a visit to UCL. And they showed their surprise about the role the library can play at this field. It seems that we have a lot of evangelistic work to do, but let's do it. In the Netherlands, we are talking quite intensively about open and personalized education. The Dutch government supports projects between 2015 and 2018 because they think open and online education can facilitate decision processes of prospective students and drive innovation in education. And they think open educational resources should enhance students' success rates. And it is about sharing, getting a higher quality of materials, and in the end also better education. But there's another aspect. They think it will offer a means to a personalized approach to education. And the graph that you see shows that students will be able to have a freedom of choice in content, that they will have education suitable for their own background, but they can study in their own place, time and speed. Summing up, libraries and education support is about support in creation of materials, sharing materials, but also having the right connections nationally and internationally. Our role, and some of us maybe still have to fight for that role in our universities, that role should concentrate on the support of content creation, use and reuse, but also, as a new resource, the process interactions between lecturers and students. For example, blogs with reactions, Facebook notifications, or comments in response to articles available in course materials. And this raises issues in the area of licenses, findability, metadata creation, storage, suitable management and copyright. All sorts of questions where the library specialists are positioned to address these. And looking at this personalized approach in the Netherlands, it will not be easy to support that process between teacher and student, or to university and student. But a strong liaison from the library between all the parties could make us a really valuable partner in that process. And what is interesting is that the fact that you give students a choice where to study, they can study anywhere, also in universities abroad. And it makes the demands toward library even more interesting. We should connect our infrastructures to facilitate the choices of our students at any time and any place. That brings me to the next pillar of my presentation, the role of libraries in research support. As we have just argued, the role for libraries in education is and must, to my opinion, be growing. However, in the literature, especially in the last year, you see most emphasis on our role in research support. And MIT Libraries is showing that in this quote. They believe that research support is in a transformation from libraries giving access to knowledge in libraries providing support for creation of knowledge. And there are indeed important issues that we can raise. The JISC CNI report I already mentioned raises some important issues like institutional repositories and the future role of that, the uprise of university presses. What should we do with new components of scholarly communication? What about quantitative metrics, a subject that in Australia and New Zealand is even more important than everywhere else in the world? And interoperability, internationally shared infrastructures. I will highlight some of these in the next minutes. Starting with institutional repositories. Is there a future role for institutional repositories? The Confederation of Open Access Repositories think there is. They just released a report on next generation repositories, and it says that they think they have a potential to help transform the scholarly communication system. But at the same time, there are people that are wondering, what do they mean with this? Is that new? Is that not what we already tried for the last 15 to 20 years? We know that we have invested quite a lot in institutional repositories during these years. But did we really mean to be a threat to the commercial publishers? I'll come back to that later in my presentation. also on institutional repositories is a strong belief from Clifford Lynch. He even says that the linkage between journal article open access and institutional repository agendas has been a mistake, as quoted here. But I support his statement that institutional repositories must be repositioned in the broader context of managing and preserving other institutional community assets. It should be seen as a useful tool to take care of all the new components of the scholarly record that we now do not pay enough attention to, like video, blogs, social media, new forms of grey literature in digital format, etc. Another aspect is the uprise of university presses. Is that really a library concern? I think yes, it is certainly a library concern. In the US, more than in the European countries, there is an uprise, mainly in the area of publication of the scholarly monograph. And in Europe you see that the attitude of the commercial publishers in the OA debate brings universities and sometimes university libraries to the idea of setting up their own publishing facilities. To my opinion, libraries are libraries, and we should concentrate on those areas where we are good in. So we should concentrate on our relation with our authors, support the digital activities of the author, and provide the necessary help with author rights and advice on where to publish best. That's a new task, born out of necessity, because we do not make the life of our authors very easy, with all the different aspects of open access, green open access, gold open access, and what have you. But the setup of university press should be left to others in the university environment or outside, who will be bothered by business models suitable for a modern university press. Last, but certainly not least, I would like to draw your attention to the desire not to reinvent the wheel again, and to think seriously about sharing service more widely. Of course, the organizational challenges of finding ways to do so are huge. But we really have to get to an interoperable research infrastructure, which means that we share facilities, resources and related services used by researchers. And we should play our role as libraries in that. Summing up, libraries in research support shows that our role is certainly changing into a much more proactive role, mainly to simplify the life of our researchers, but also to take care of this huge amount of new resources that are now more or less neglected by us, and use our knowledge of curation to manage these resources. And like in the education support, I already mentioned it there, we see that international collaboration is more important than ever. It's key, and I think it's a common thread for the future attitude of libraries. This brings me to the next pillar of my presentation, open science and the challenges we are facing there. Open science is a global movement, of course, but has got particular attention within the European Union. And I'm proud to tell you that the Dutch presidency of the Union from January till June 2016 saw open science as one of the principal activities of their work. And in May 2016 this led to conclusions of the Council of the European Union to take necessary actions needed for making open access a reality and to advocate the need for concerted actions in national and international fora. The European Commission says that it requires a move from publishing as fast as possible to sharing knowledge as early as possible, as you can see in this quote. And to that goal, they established an open science policy platform to oversee the developments in open science activities. And the EU sees open science as a way to open up the research process, what these figures must show to you. And interestingly, we see in this figure several elements where libraries can take a leading role. Some of those are similar with the new roles that Clifford Lynch was talking about in his article. New elements in scholarly communication, where the libraries should be involved actively, like open annotation, open data, open lab books, preprints, open access, and collaborative bibliographies. All areas where we can use our competencies to the most. The European Union set up the concept of the European Open Science Cloud as a contribution to an internet of fair data and services. It aims at 4 ambitions in reward, research integrity, education and skills, and citizen science. And the European Open Cloud, just to avoid misunderstandings, is a supporting environment for open science, not an open cloud for science. And the cloud here is referring to a commons of data, software, standards, expertise and policy related to data-driven science and innovation. And it's not about a hard ICT infrastructure. And the European Open Science Cloud took up several urgent areas to work on, like the new reward systems, assessment of old metrics, the conditions for fair open data, and alternative open access business models. And over the next 5 years, the EU will invest 2 billion euros to connect the fragmented research infrastructures as we know them now and realize this open cloud. I will talk about 2 of these elements more, the fair open data and the open access business models. Because fair data is part of the European Open Science Cloud that makes it mandatory for researchers to make data from EU-funded research available under these principles. Data must be findable, accessible, interoperable and reusable. And it puts specific emphasis on enhancing the ability of machines to automatically find and use data and to support its reuse by individuals. And, by the way, openness of data, which still frightens some of our researchers, I know, is found not as important as the fairness of data. And the FAIR principles that we just looked at are by now already sort of common knowledge. But these FAIR guiding principles, where you're now looking at, principles to be findable, to be accessible, to be interoperable, and to be reusable, look very much like library speak. It's all about metadata. And who are champions in handling metadata anyway? Of course, I know that some of these metadata are the specific domain of a researcher, but even so. By working together towards shared common goals, the valuable data produced by our community will gradually achieve the critical goals of the fairness. And in the Netherlands, a group of researchers, the Dutch Tech Center for Life Sciences, took the initiative to connect all the different clouds that are already available worldwide. It proposes an inclusive, open and practical implementation of the recommendations of the European Open Science Cloud. And they want to instigate cultural change to make the FAIR principles a working standard, to train people into core certified data experts, and to build interoperable and federated data infrastructure for harmonization of standards, etc. And in the Netherlands, we just released in last January the Dutch National Plan for Open Science, 3 issues are prioritized for the coming years. You see them here: open access, fair data, and develop matching, evaluation and reward systems. It's an important step in the Netherlands for the different stakeholders engaging with scientific research and takes up all the goals that the European Open Science Cloud is setting for us. And interesting is that one of my library colleagues in the Netherlands has been taking the lead to get to this new plan. And that automatically was a guarantee that also the role of libraries is recognized in this plan, which makes me, of course, very happy. The person behind all these developments is our State Secretary, Sander Dekker. He stated in early 2015 that we should reach 100% open access in 2024, that it should be gold, that we should not get any additional budget, and that the universities had to negotiate. And some moral and political arguments have led to these basic rules. And they worked. We support the commitment of publishing business and the role towards the scientific community. But publicly funded research should not be a source of substantial income by commercial publishers. And there should be room for discussion on both sides. And we stick to these very basic rules. And the approach of the ministry has opened doors towards open access. You see, they are not completely open yet, but that will come. Libraries have played an important role in this process in the Netherlands, in close collaboration with the boards of the universities, to open up our contracts with the commercial publishers. And personally, I'm involved in the negotiations with Elsevier. And we have found that a structured approach towards the negotiations have helped us. We choose consistently for the gold approach because we really believe that institutional repositories are not the way to change the attitude of publishers. It did not so before, so why will it now? The basis of our negotiations is to reach institutional prepaid open access. We do not want to bother our researchers with individually paid APCs. This leads to a whole new area of activities by the libraries to be able to guide our authors through all these new publishing rules. But we are very happy to do so, and it brings us much closer to our researchers than before. And our approach had results. Our approach in the Netherlands led to good results. I will show you here a link to a page on our national website which show you which deals we have closed in the last years. We have agreements now with about 12 large publishers, and we got substantial attention worldwide with our steps. The German Max Planck Institute delivered since then some firm strategies to go forward with an offsetting strategy. And we really hope that other countries will follow what we have started. And it's the only way to get positive results. Last year we got 2 requests from citizens based on the Freedom of Information Act about our big deals. One is about the cost of publication per university, which as you see here in the link that we have opened at our national website. By the way, you can find this information yourself on our website too. The second request is the open access contracts and the conditions under which we close those contracts. And we have agreements with 12 publishers so far. You only see 10 here because we do not have an agreement with Elsevier and Springer to publish their conditions as well. Then I come to a close. My conclusions. Libraries are just at the start of their transformation in the areas of education and research. And as stated here, open science is dictating the research and education agenda and is therefore also dictating the developments towards next generation libraries. And frankly, I think both support for open education and support for research should be part of the global open science movement. It is like UCL stated before. Only when you confront students with an open environment, you will get a generation of researchers with, I could say, open DNA. And I'm certain that the library, when we really gain a place between our teachers and researchers, will fulfill a bridging role by connecting all sorts of necessary components in the scholarly environment. But it means that we have to open up ourselves to these aspects and dare to take a leading role. Dare to take the lead and do it together. Work with each other internationally. That is why I'm grateful that I could talk to you today, and it's a pity that I cannot be in there in person to talk further. But I'm sure we will create other opportunities in the future. Thank you for your kind attention.
Well, I think it was a very thought-provoking presentation, and I could hear a few murmurs when Maria mentioned certain publishers. So Maria is now joining us through Zoom. We have her with us here, and I am sure there will be quite a few questions. So Maria, there's a microphone in the audience, so do we have questions? Thank you, Jill.
Greetings, Maria, from Jill Barthorpe at AUT. You spoke to us a little bit about open education, and I wondered if you could tell us a bit more about what you see as the role of libraries in the environment of online education. What can we be doing in that area?
I can tell you what we do in THETA. When we join the teams that are working with blended learning, and we all sorts of advice on how to work with that, how licenses are to be handled. There's a big issue about copyright issues in the Netherlands, and our teachers are really not knowing how to handle those, and we now form their partner in that sort of activities.
Thank you. Further questions for Maria? There's another one coming.
Hi, Annette from the University of Auckland. I was really interested in what you were saying about your contracts for open access publishing. I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about that, how it works, and are you happy with it?
First of all, yes, we are very happy with it. You always can try to get more out of it, but we are very happy with how far we are now. What we try to do is to really have an offsetting strategy, as you may call it. We would like to call it prepaid institutional open access. And many of the contracts that we have now are in the format that we get free open access for the articles that Dutch authors are submitting with the publishers. And only for a publisher like Elsevier, we have only a certain amount of articles that we are allowed to offer in open access per year. And it's about 3,600 per year for 3 years in a row. We just, and that is fairly new, last week we refused a contract with Oxford University Press because they are not offering us an open access option that is acceptable to us. So we now have no access to Oxford University Press as of the end of May, but it's worth to us to try to get Oxford just working with us, and we just have to get the pressure on them. So we really would like to have, with every big publisher, we would like to have a contract where open access is an important part of the contract.
Maria, you mentioned that the Max Planck Institute is also looking at negotiations like this. Now, you've set the example in the Netherlands. Do you have any feeling if other European countries may follow your example?
Sure, there are already countries following us, like Austria, and in Germany, maybe you know that Germany did not sign a contract with Elsevier last December for part of their countries within Germany. For them it's easier to do so because there are always countries that do have access to publications, because not every country is closing a contract at the same time. But even so, they all make statements with these negotiations towards bigger publishers. But we still need a lot more countries to follow, of course, because this is only something that you can have a success when everybody joins in. And I also know that not everybody wants to go for gold. But as I stated in my presentation already, institutional repositories are not the answer for, and green open access is not the answer to, I could say, fight the commercial publishers. They really need another approach. And maybe the approach that we follow is not effective enough, but at least we thought we have to do something and we have to start somewhere. And that's why we really now stick to the gold approach.
We have time for another question or two. Are there any more questions from the audience? Maria, you also mentioned collaboration. And, you know, from experience, I think we all can agree that it is sometimes a challenge just to even collaborate within your own institution. Do you have any examples of how you collaborate within the Netherlands around open education resources or anything else?
Not yet on open education resources. Not every library in the Netherlands is yet convinced that they should play a role in open education resources, so we have a lot of work to do there. But on data management, research data management, we have close collaboration between the 13 universities and the National Organization for IT and Academic Environment, SURF. And we really are, in fact, not making steps without each other. We just bought in Amsterdam the Figshare software for data management, and we are the first in the Netherlands to do so, and we hope others will follow. But in this respect, for instance, I would really like to work together with other people worldwide who work with Figshare. And that could be a basis for starting a collaboration with other countries. Because I think it's not so much working together within one country, but it's more working together on a worldwide basis. We cannot do it on our own, and not one country can do it on its own. We really should stick together. And I know it's not easy. It's a challenge to have organizations working together. But we really should try, and we should try in this sort of areas.
Thank you very much. So I think we've all found this very thought-provoking, very interesting. And as Maria mentioned, if you look at the website, there really is a wealth of information about the approach around open access. And you will be able to find that through the slides that will be available. So I just want to thank you very much, Maria, on behalf of all of us. Dank je wel en goedenavond.
No, I was my pleasure. Thank you.